All right, so just a few minutes ago, I just watched the Jeka Saragih versus Lucas Alexander fight live. And I just wanted to give some initial, immediate reactions to that because I'm still buzzing from it. And forgive me if I'm looking over at the screen, I am doing live Tapology results as well. So still kind of keeping an eye on this UFC Vegas card. But man, what a performance by Jeka Saragih. I'll be honest, I did not think that he was going to win this fight. I thought Lucas Alexander was too polished, too tough of an opponent for Jeka Saragih. I was disappointed that they gave him someone that had such like a polished striking game and good grappling for his first fight. But you know, it was what it was. I did a breakdown on this fight earlier this week and felt like Lucas Alexander, his low kicks and his finesse were going to be too much for Jeka. But I did say that Jeka's power is always an X factor, and he can always catch Alexander, especially coming down from lightweight down to featherweight. We'll see if his power will transfer, and boy, did it ever transfer. All he needed was one punch, the right hook, was able to stagger Alexander and drop him to the mat. And eventually, once he was on the mat, once he landed that knockout shot, he just blasted him with some standing ground punches. Really impressive performance by Jeka Saragih. And, you know, going into this matchup, I felt like perhaps maybe if he loses this fight, the UFC will give him another shot. But for real, like Jeka Saragih in the UFC right now is an investment into the Indonesian MMA market. It doesn't have to happen now, but I know that the UFC has plans to visit Jakarta, Indonesia next September or October. So you got to think Jeka doing really well is very, very big for growing the UFC's audience in Indonesia, which is already a pretty sizable fan base from what I can tell. So this is only going to grow Jeka's influence, grow their audience in Indonesia. Of course, he has to keep winning. He has to keep doing well. But for the UFC, what do you do if with Jeka now? I say keep giving him opponents. I would say even lower than Alexander. Give him a couple more kind of at the bottom. Give him more time to round out his skills, bring up his wrestling, his grappling, all that good stuff. But it was interesting because something that I did highlight in my breakdown was the how Jeka, he has a lot of just raw strength that he can use, not only for the knockdown, but we saw even in some of his One Pride fights how he would take guys and just throw them to the mat, kind of just with his brute strength. And that's kind of what he did with Alexander. He just threw him to the mat, and then when Alexander was getting up, that was when he had the knockout shot. So it was really Jeka using his strengths and just finding just that singular moment to capitalize on them. So really impressed with Jeka in his first fight at featherweight. Proud of him for getting the victory despite having 2 opponent changes in the last month. So very impressive stuff. The team over at MMA Academy in San Diego has to be very proud of that performance. And on to the next one. Let's see if they'll give him, I'm guessing he'll probably get another fight, maybe next spring against, I don't know, probably if I was a matchmaker, someone pretty low on the totem pole. You want to handle Jeka in the UFC very delicately, give him opportunities to shine, let him have plenty of time to develop his skills, don't shoot him up the ladder too quickly. I'm very, very excited about Jeka in the UFC. But yeah, it's just interesting because I feel like everyone, including myself, was almost counting Jeka out of this fight. And we were all wrong, right? All of us, except for the faithful Indonesian fans. I know I'm kind of eating my words here, but for me, just looking at the skill of both guys, it just seemed like this was a bad matchup for Jeka. But that Indonesian power, right?